Arman Eshraghi, founder and CEO of Qrvey. Welcome to the Insight Jam.
Thanks for having me, Doc. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'm glad you're here because I think it would be good for you to start by letting everybody know why the world needs embedded analytics. You've been in this for a long time. You've built Qrvey. Prior to that, you're at Logi. Why embedded analytics?
Sure. Honestly, sometimes takes, at least for me, I'm not super smart. So for me, it takes a few attempts to get it right. So it's kind of should be expected. But the reality is that embedded and in general, I think many other topics, many other concepts, it's more than just the technology side of it. And as a kind of, entrepreneur, as a founder, when you have more, when you have less gray hair, you really come to the market, you create something focusing on the product technology. And if you get it right, you think that that's it. I built the perfect product or the good product for embedded analytics, and that's all it counts. And the more you really go through that path, you realize that, technology and product and all of this is important, but it's just a small fraction of everything, right? So it's not the full picture. If you look at the 360-degree kind of view, then you realize that embedded analytics is more than just a product. It's about also having the right team with that DNA in place. It's also about really architecturally doing that from get-go. You can add features down the road, don't worry about it, but you cannot change the architecture. It's like you have built a hospital and then all of a sudden you change your mind and say, I want to make it high school. Well, not that kind of easy. But if you have built a high school and you want to add more classes, that's fine, right? So you want to modernize your classes, fine. So when I built Logi day one, we didn't start it as embedded analytics like any other company I know in the market that they do embedded analytics today. Qrvey is the only one that when it has started with, I want this to be 100% embedded analytics. So architecturally, it was a big fit, a good match. It was the right fit. Also from DNA of the team, it was the right fit. Also from support and training, it was a good fit. From business model perspective, it was 100% OEM. From training and onboarding customers and helping customers to help their customers, it was perfectly that. Even from licensing, from pricing model, it was that. So there are so many aspects of embedded that changes everything depending on whom you speak with. If the guy is DevOps guy, has a different meaning for embedded. If the guy is engineer, if the guy is product manager, if the guy is UI expert or UX expert. So there are, many, many different aspects. And at Qrvey, we wanted to really have a good understanding of embedded and only focus on that part. That's the big differentiation of Qrvey doing embedded versus others, including my previous company, Logi Analytics, doing embedded.
So this is interesting. So you were the founder of Logi Analytics, and you were there for almost 2 decades building that business, and it was and has been highly successful. And yet you have gone out and done it again. So what is the appeal for building a new business after having such a successful outcome?
Yeah, so actually, I had 2 other companies as well in the past. I started first one at the age of 18, and they were about data automation, app building, the same kind of thing that we have here. And every time you do it in a different way, right? So when I did the first time, I was 18, MS-DOS came to market. I did it on, these microcomputers, because before then that, everyone was, working on mainframe. So that was new. When the second company started, it was the very, very first time Windows came to market, and we did something on Windows. And the third company, when XML came to market in 99, and we did Logi XML, that we changed the name to Logi Analytics later. And that was the very first kind of web-based reporting dashboarding in the market. And then when we did the fourth one, Qrvey, when I did that, that was the time that microservices came to market. AWS became essentially another cloud providers gaining momentum, and they became the new operating system, right? So before then, that age, people were asking, are you running on .NET? Are you running on Windows, Java? Those kind of questions. You don't hear that anymore. We are hearing that, are you running on Azure? Are you running on GCP? Are you running on AWS, right? So the new operating system are these cloud environments. And even if you're, now thinking about it, a layer even detached from that, are you running on Kubernetes? So that is your kind of container, and that's your operating system. And those kind of questions that you hear, that was a new age. And Qrvey is designed for that new age. And every time you do it in a new environment, the underlying technology drastically is changing. You're actually able to address some of the needs that you couldn't address before, right? So when I started Qrvey, I put everything in a list from all the challenges we had, all the things that customers market needed and we couldn't satisfy. Not because we didn't know how to write that code, just we couldn't do it. The underlying technology had some limitations. And then we listed everything, and then we put all of them into different buckets. And we said, this is our kind of guiding principle for Qrvey. We are going to really tackle all of these, and we are now leveraging a new technology with way more capabilities, and these are going to solve those problems from the size of the data, volume, from velocity of the data, from many different aspects, from people want to have a higher level of self-service. People need a different type of group of people. The power users need a totally new way of no-code kind of power to really go there and do a lot of things. They need automation, not just visualization. Data visualization, nice, but that problem is solved. That's a commodity now. People need a lot more. That's the tip of the iceberg. What about the rest of it? I need to solve my data problem. I need a data pipelining. I need data transformations. I need, the automation part. I need artificial intelligence. There are so many different aspects, and that's a much bigger problem to solve. And still, we are not at the end of that. Data visualization chart, these kind of things, I would say, maybe that is something that people may say, we have zillions of options, why one more option? And I would agree with them. But when it comes to data problem, that's not true about that side of this.
So it's interesting. I go back a ways as well, and go back long enough to have seen in previous lives selling marketing software and other things to large organizations. And when you get into the details of having those conversations, one of the dirty secrets, I think, of a lot of organizations is the state of their data. And nobody likes to talk about it. And I got to believe that you've seen a lot of things as well with regard to, what data has value, what data no longer has value. How do you think about helping an organization that has those kind of internal data issues? I mean, where do you draw the line with regard to where they need to think about their data? I mean, all data has been captured. A lot of it is sitting in places that and is so old that it has no value, but some of it isn't quite captured properly. I mean, how do you think about getting people to kind of level set on where their data is so they can extract the value that you're offering from the tools that you bring to the table?
We live in a different era than we lived 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, we lived in a totally different era that we lived probably 20 previous to that time. So as you see, the trend is that more variety of data is coming, right? So we have more variety of data from voice, from image, from video, from structured, semi-structured, unstructured data, documents. We have data coming from social media that we can collect that we didn't have access to before. We have data coming from different sensors and IoT devices that we didn't have before. So there are zillions of, drones can just go everywhere and collect data, come back. You need to grab that data if it's video or it's from other aspects. So there's so much data coming now, and we have the luxury now that at much lower price collect so much data. Now, necessarily is not a good positive news, right? So it might be it is not necessarily a plus. It might be a minus that you have so much data. If you cannot really organize it, if you cannot gain the right insight out of it, it's actually it's not in your advantage. It can be in your disadvantage, because then all of this data can be confusing. Why you collect all of this data? That is just added cost and be no good reason. So organizations need to be smart about it. And honestly, I'm a very pragmatic guy. I don't want to really encourage anyone that go and collect every data you can and then, boil the ocean. From my perspective, you can really get a lot of value from your data, even if your data is just the data you have today without expanding it. But at the same time, then you need to have a roadmap. You need to have a vision in your mind that what is next. You never, ever should stop where you are and should say, that's it. I'm happy. I should stop here. That's wrong. A coffee shop can expand its business better and faster by being smart about their data than making better coffee. When you make better coffee, your business grows 5%, maybe. But if you are smart about data, you can really expand your business 10 times, 20-fold maybe, whatever. I mean, it's a lot of expansion in that case. So before you pay too much attention, if your coffee is really good enough, then pay attention to your data if you are a coffee shop. Now, this is true about every business, right? So every business can look at the data and say, what else I can do with this data? I can really get smarter about my business if I get smarter about my data and gain insight and take more actions and better actions. And the beauty of where we are today is really the power of analytics and the power of collaboration, communication of the data, distribution of the data, analyzing the data, self-service part of the data, making it no good. There are millions of opportunities from any aspect you can think of, and the business needs to look at it and say, which aspect is more beneficial to me for the next 3 months to focus on, and what is the next step and the next, and then create that kind of roadmap for the next years coming, and then going through that, and whenever they are done with phase 1, go to phase 2, go to phase 3, go to phase 4, and I think, it brings a lot of opportunities to businesses. It's just, but at the same time, I discourage companies looking at, the very big picture very early and think that I have to do everything during the next 2 months, and that picture can get scary and discouraging, and that's not right. Data problem is the biggest, is a tough problem. It's not like, let me just create a chart. You cannot create a meaningful chart, insightful chart, if you don't have the right data, right? So the visualization side can be extremely fast if you have the right foundation for your data. But that foundation of quality data, the right data, being fresh, being good data, trustworthy and reliable data, is not going to be, if you don't do it right, is not coming to you randomly just because, you put 2 people there and say, let's do it in the next 2 weeks.
So this sounds a lot like the story we saw over the last probably decade and a half with regard to cloud adoption. I would argue there was a very large resistance, and I think a very kind of entrenched old guard that was just not interested in cloud adoption.
Sure.
And to a large degree, I think the movement toward the cloud has coincided with a lot of those folks kind of cycling out, and the newer folks who are coming and making decisions who have grown up with cloud solutions, going all the way back to, kind of the kind of more predominant early ones like Salesforce.com or any number of other ones. And so now everybody is much more comfortable in the cloud. Is that now enabling, is that movement toward the cloud enabling people to think about these types of data solutions because that data is so much more readily integrated into a presentation layer like you're offering?
I think it's not really one factor, but it's a bunch of things. One of them is specialization, right? So we see companies getting specialized, like medicine. When medicine 100 years ago, you could go to doctor for whatever, problem the body might have at any part and done. Now it's not true. We have a specialized kind of doctors, physicians at every single aspect of the body, and sometimes even so kind of narrowed down to a particular thing, particular pain, particular experience. Software is younger technology compared to medicine. And of course, it's going through the same path. We are where maybe, 10 years ago, we were where medicine was 100 years ago. Now we are kind of going through that, specializing ourselves in different domains. With regard to the data, the same. For example, with Qrvey, our specialty is multi-tenancy. So we are expert in multi-tenancy, right? So when you need analytics for an environment that you are serving external users, not internal users, not just a group of users as your employees, but you are actually building these analytics for companies outside your company. They are not your employees. You even don't know their requirements. You may sign up a new customer tomorrow and it comes with totally new requirements because they are so big in size or they are different in nature compared to customers you had so far. That's the kind of environment that Qrvey is specialized in, multi-tenant. Now, when you focus on one area and you say, my data, the data I know how to design it well, is about multi-tenancy, of course, that focus helps you to learn more about those use cases. It helps the company to really bring the talents and experience and expertise in that particular case, and then we can solve problems that maybe 10 years ago, even ourselves, we couldn't solve it. Now, based on that focusing on that domain and those use cases, we build tools, technologies, we build documents, we build knowledge base, everything around that, and that increases our chance of going there and helping companies at the level we couldn't help before. So I think the specialization is one of them. And that's true about many aspects of data. For example, if you go to market and say, my data, I'm more kind of in medicine, I'm in kind of taking all of these images, and I wanted to analyze these images and see out of these thousands of images, which one should be the one that I should pay more attention because there is a chance of cancer there. Okay, that's a specialty. If some companies are really, really focusing on image recognition and image analytics for the medical world, and they're looking at those data over time, they are going to solve problems that otherwise couldn't. But that comes to play because they are specialized in that domain. I'm a big believer in kind of specializing, focusing more as software industry kind of matures. And then we are going to get to the place that we are solving bigger problems faster, better in the next 10, 20 years because we are specialized.
So how do you help folks visualize the potential of their data? So I have to assume that, you obviously are maybe one of the greatest experts in this space that exists today. You have so much knowledge, but your organization is obviously gathering knowledge every day. And how do you help people, clients, prospects think about what they can get for value out of their data? Are there some kind of go-to programs that you suggest they think about, or is everything kind of customized and one-off, or are they coming to you and saying, here's what we want, how do we do it?
Yeah, so we always have been, at least in my case, all of the companies, all of the products I always have built is more a platform. And what it means that I am building these pieces of Legos for people to put together and build what they want. And my job is to make sure our team at Qrvey, their job is to really provide those pieces of Legos in a way that it makes it easier, faster, quicker for people to really understand very intuitively how to put those parts and build what they want much faster, right? So that's the way we look at it. Now, based on the use cases that we see, based on companies coming to us asking for different things, we come up with different parts, with different pieces, and we say we need to build those for the next 6 months, 1 year. And as we go through this experience and we build a mature product platform, this platform is going to be more powerful over time. So part of this is really the partnership. When a company comes and work with Qrvey, they are essentially telling us that, hey, you are our partner on the analytics side. You grow as we grow. We are really going to address some of these needs of our customers, and some of those needs, we have no idea what that might be because we have not signed up all of the customers yet. But as we bring these requirements, as we wanted to solve these problems, then you need to be there and grow with us and come and help us. And since you are very focused in solving exactly this type of problems for this type of companies that we are, meaning multi-tenancy, SaaS companies, embedded analytics, you have a much higher chance of anybody else to really be able to solve that based on that focus. The way we look at it is each use case might be different. If, for example, we have EdTech, some companies coming in the EdTech world come to us with a variety of data from different colleges. Each college has a different data set, different format. They wanted to bring data. They wanted to do the analysis. It's a different problem when we are working with one of these, for example, IoT devices companies that they are collecting data from so many devices, different from a game company that collects data from the zillions of users coming, playing game, and they wanted to really bring the data and analyze it. So as you see, use cases might be different. But from our perspective, the platform that we provide them with the data transformations, with the data visualizations they have, with the data collection, with the alerts that they need, with some data management they need, all of that needs to be in a way that our platform can help them to provide that to their customers in the way they want, meaning maximum flexibility, configurability. We don't know. Some companies may come to us and say, our customers are savvy enough, they need to manage their data themselves. Some other companies may come to us and say, we manage data for all of our customers. Both cases need to be covered. Our job as a platform provider is maximal flexibility with all of these to be configurable so they can really fit into that environment and the solution that they provide.
Do you find that companies, I mean, everybody obviously who would come to you since you've been building Qrvey is already has something. Do you find that most organizations are using multiple solutions in parallel effectively rather than throwing something out and ripping and replacing for an entirely new platform? How do you see people kind of evolving their data analysis internally?
Yeah, so there are different cases. Great question. There are cases that they are defining a new project, right? So, and this new project never existed before. They wanted to do something new with their data. Maybe this is a new set of data. Maybe this is the data that was never utilized before in that way. And they want to do it now. They wanted to maybe provide the data as a service that they never
may bring
provide.
you in independent of what they've already got going on because for whatever reason they've determined that what they have now won't scale to where they think you might be able to go?
Mostly we are competing with build versus buy. Mostly they are thinking about, we can build it. And we can build it, but it takes this much time and this much resources we need and this time we need. And then they want to see if there's anything in the market that can help them to facilitate it in any way. And then we are there and they compare us with, if we build it, this is where we end up. If we go with Qrvey and we use that embedded analytic and add it as a layer on top of our product and application, then we can really do something in 3 months that otherwise would have taken years to do it, much less money, and those kind of things, right? So it's normally build versus buy, but sometimes also, as you mentioned, maybe they have some systems, legacy systems in place that has some limitations and they wanted to really modernize. So modernization, cloudification, all of those are different, also very usual kind of, scenarios that we have seen in the market.
It's interesting. So this to me is kind of an interesting angle that we see over and over again. It's almost like the hubris of the data teams, the hubris of the internal developers, that they can just build whatever it is, and there's resistance to these clearly well thought out and we cover all these solutions at Solutions Review, these clearly well thought out solutions that are available to them. Do you still see that? I mean, is that it strikes me that that would be another thing that's starting to legacy out, is this idea that, well, we'll just build it ourselves. I can't believe that mindset will continue to scale. Certainly not where we're headed now.
Well, it is more like, if you think of two axes, one axis is how complex the need is, and the other axis is how much time and resources I have. So if your complexity of your need and requirements going to the roof, and your time and budget is not in line with that, definitely you have to really think about finding something that can get you there shorter amount of time with less money, and be able to satisfy those complex requirements. Versus if you have a simple need that is within your reach, and you have the developers and resources, and you know how to get there, and it's within your core competency, and your budget fits into that and everything, then maybe at that case, I will build it. We don't get normally involved if the need is not complex, and we have no interest to satisfy those needs. We are most interested when you are solving a bigger problem, because your data is huge, because your velocity of your data is big, because your complexity of data model is not just rows and columns that otherwise everyone could help you with. It's because, for example, my users have a special needs, because each tenant needs to add some customized columns, and it's not going to be handled easily. And then we wanted to really tackle that problem. It's because my security model is very tough. My data privacy is really complex, and it's not that easy to manage. I'm serving multiple, regions, and each region needs to be managed differently. So there are so many different things that when you understand all of these, it can add to the complexity. I would say for, probably easier solutions, still people might go and just develop it. I don't think it is the right approach to really take a very complex requirement and just say, let's build it ourselves. That age is I don't think that is over. That era is over.
The idea that that folks are going to continue to, I'm just stuck at the moment we're in right now, and the idea that you can continue to be in the build mindset with all that's happening. It seems like you'll eventually just be left behind. I mean, particularly now that we're moving toward AI and what I would call proprietary LLMs, if you will. I mean, where do you see us going right now with regard to that kind of organizational data? So, we have these, frontier large language models and AI, but it strikes me that and there's a large hesitancy, and I'm sure you're seeing that as well, for people to play around with AI with their own data. Are we headed toward this kind of what I would call proprietary LLMs for these organizations? Is that where folks are going to go and try to sort out kind of an internal AI approach?
Yeah. So, when we are talking about AI, it's important to acknowledge that there are so many different types of AI, even if Gen AI is getting all of the attention at the moment. But we have so many other things that they deserve to be named AI. It might be about voice recognition. It might be about image recognition. It might be about PDF extraction, data from PDF.
Well, so break it down. How do you think about that? I mean, how do you think about AI rather than just generative AI or no AI? I mean, how are you thinking about it? And what are companies coming and asking you about with regard to their AI strategy and the data they're gathering?
Sure. So, to be honest with you, there are people that come to us and they ask about AI because the company needs to have an answer for AI in front of their customers. And, even if it's at the demo level, but they wanted to show something that customers understand they are able to provide AI capabilities. And of course, we have, a variety of functionalities that they can demo. Now, do I really advise them that really bet 100% on these functionalities for their analytics needs? No, not yet, because I keep telling them that they still need to address the data privacy issues. They still need to address the cost issues, that leveraging some of these functions can cost them a lot. Is it something aligned with their... there are several things that still need to be figured out. But if they wanted to really build something for their customers that the customers use in addition to everything they have, not the only thing, that's a good addition. So that's really something they can do. And as I said, there are many different types of AI today that we are using. But generative AI in particular, as you know, is about creativity, right? So it's about really, if you go to Gen AI and say, it's going to really replace everything that I do on my analytics side, probably that's not going to happen in the next month or two. You need to wait for some years for that to gain that maturity. But if you are thinking about generative AI, create a description and some explanation about this chart and analytics that you have, that's a good use case. If you are thinking about that to really, help you to maybe suggest some of the setting for your visualization, that's a good use case. If you think that, that generative AI can take you, jump a start, save you 2 hours, 1 hour before you start, and then suggest some of these models that where are the outliers, and then you can start thinking about that aspect and then build what you want to dig into it and analyze it. That's a good idea. So there are some use cases for this Gen AI, and there are some maybe exaggerated use cases that I don't think they are ready for prime time. The way we see it is people and companies need to take a kind of incremental approach and just every month, every quarter, maybe think about what else I can do to tweak it to save some hours here, some hours there using this AI, rather than really go there and just think about, I can just replace everything I have with this kind of prompt in 6 months from now. I can promise that's not going to happen. So there are so much that needs to be built before you get there, including the data that needs to be built, including the interactivity that you need as a user, because as soon as it answers one question, then you need to have that interactivity, that interaction, that you can go and change it and add some other parameters, go back and forth to get what you really need.
Well, but you've seen the evolution of moving from the PC revolution, right? I mean, going from analog to digital. You were part of that in some of your early startups, it sounds like, where you were building on DOS. And you've seen the internet revolution, obviously, and that whole impact, and subsequently the cloud revolution. This is going to be similarly transformative. I would argue that it's even more transformative than PCs or the internet, and we're only getting going. You went from DOS to Windows and built 2 companies. That I remember that it was probably 10 years, and we went from DOS to Windows, and we never looked back. When we began to network right around the same time, business networks, we never looked back, and then we ended up with the cloud, and here we are. So you have the benefit of that perspective. I mean, where do you see this going? It's going to go very quickly, I would argue, and it's going to have a massive impact on how we think about data. And actually, I heard in one of my podcasts, the CEO of Anonymous, Shiva Nathan, referred to, he thought that data would eventually be a liability for companies because there will be no way to protect it. Ultimately, when you start to layer in quantum computing and so forth, we'll put that one aside for a second. But this is going to go quickly. I mean, how do you see it going down? I mean, where do you? Is it going to begin to eliminate jobs? Is it going to begin to take functionality directly out of data organizations? What do you see as you look at it?
I think it takes time. And the reason I think it takes time, because look at more recent development like autonomous cars, right? So the autonomous driving, right? So we have seen Waymo, Google back then, driving this autonomous car with no driver in the parking lot of Google, with visitors coming and showing them at the demo level. And that concept is 20 years old now. When you go to Computer Science Museum in the Bay Area, the copy that they have put there is almost 20 years old. So that really technology working in a parking lot was there. But did it get to kind of the point that right now I can just take any robotaxi and go anywhere I want after almost 20 years? No, it's still not there. Maybe in some areas, maybe in some hours.
Tesla would tell you different. Tesla's FSD looks pretty comprehensive. I mean,
yeah, but still, I cannot use it more than 90% of the cases. I have to intervene, even if I'm using the latest version.
Say, I mean, self-driving cars is a whole different kettle of fish. I mean, that's the 3D world. There's lives involved. I mean, what ChatGPT revealed was kind of like when the Mac landed and the WYSIWYG OS. It was a game changer for how people thought about AI, and that's only been here for a year and a half. And when the Mac landed, I mean, granted, the Mac was kind of a flop, but Windows was built around the Mac OS,
sure,
and that wasn't a flop. So it's coming.
But I think yes, but it's not just about the technology that we can build fast or not. There are legal aspects of it. For example, some of these Cruise or Zoox or Tesla or some other companies may argue that we could move faster, but there are some regulations. We cannot just put it on the car and then ask people to go and test it. The same with AI Gen AI that we are experiencing today. Sooner or later, there are data privacy coming. Some states like Virginia, for example, they are getting to the point that, providing enough power, electricity to all of these data centers has become now a barrier. So they need 18 months for the new kind of permissions permits to be issued. Now 18 months to wrap up. And it's not just about we add another generator here. It's about also the power distribution, right? So you need to really take the power.
Centers you're talking about, the data centers? I'm
talking about data centers, that if you wanted to start a new data center for this new AI, for example, this was one of the, Virginia was one of the places that you could go, and one of the places that Amazon has tons of data centers here. Google has tons of data centers here. And now they are getting to the point that, now we are getting to the point that we need 18 months to wrap up the energy part of it. My point is that it's not just one aspect of, we can do it. It has so many different aspects, from the energy consumption, from optimizing the processors that we are building, from the price that we are paying for it. Investors are very optimistic now, but what if 1 year or 2 years from now, after all of these billions of dollars of investment, there is not enough return? I'm pretty sure they will start getting more conservative and pausing on some of these and saying that, let's slow down a little bit. It seems like we are spending too much money.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, because that is not how things have worked in the past. I mean, that's just not, once Lotus Notes arrived, it was game on for business software in the 80s. So, once Netscape Navigator arrived, it was game on for the internet because you had a web browser. I mean, I would argue ChatGPT is the first killer app of AI, and now it's game on, and all that money that's being invested, and it's billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars at this point. Those people are building things right now. You know this, and this is an avalanche of applications that are going to come. Not all of them, obviously, are going to be great. A lot will not be great, but there will be some that are going to be amazing, and it's going to slam into the human being, the human information worker, like nobody's business, like a buzzsaw. I have to believe that.
Yeah, but what I see mostly, these are at the demo and prototype stage. And I think there is a difference between something that is a prototype versus something that is a product. And that it takes time. I'm not against the idea that it will be product at one point. Definitely that will happen. Would it progress? It will progress. Do we get there? We will get there. I'm just saying that this doesn't happen as fast as some people may think. It will take time to get there because we have so many physical limitations. And we as humans, sometimes we slow down the technology. Even if the technology is there, we want to slow down the technology so we can catch up. Sometimes maybe regulation, sometimes the law is not there to protect it the way it should be or define it the way it should be. Sometimes it might be the energy consumption or the cost, or maybe processors are not there. For example, Apple brought the technology of iPhone to market way earlier, but at that time processors were not there, displays were not there. With other devices, it failed. And then none of them got to market. Other companies tried to bring devices that is touch device and a screen, and it didn't work the way it worked. Even iPhone itself at the first level didn't work. I would argue that iPhone that we saw 11 years ago at the very start was a prototype. It was not a product. When we look at it based on what we know today, we can say that's prototype. At that point, we thought it's product. And it was a product relatively speaking to where it was, and it was new and exciting, a smartphone. But honestly, that was a prototype back. Now, it took some years for that POC to become a real product.
Yeah, no, I think it was 15 years if you really think about it, from the time that the Apple App Store kicked into where we are today, and it's only 15 years, and the power that you hold in your hand and the alteration in which it has created a human behavior. I mean, now 15 years later, human behavior is all oriented toward looking down at your palm, even when you're driving. It's that's what I'm curious about. But I'm curious about other things. So in the time we have left, I'm actually curious about your life lessons. So I see you're working in the office, which I think is very exciting. I'm curious how you think about this whole work-life balance and hybrid work and working in the office. I'm old school, and I have this kind of jaded opinion that the worst place you can be working at the moment is from home, because you're not able to have conversations with smart folks like yourself in the hallway to get, that added value that if you're only connecting via, a meeting form like this, you're never going to get the same kind of organic learning that you can get in the office. I'm curious what your opinions are about and what you've built in terms of culture. You're in the office. I've seen other people in your office. How do you think about hybrid and remote and in-office work?
In real life, there is no perfection. There is no solution that is perfect from every aspect. Everything that we do, any approach we take, there will be some pluses and some minuses. So from building the culture perspective, it really helped us when we started the company in 2016 to really all of us be in working at the same office. And at the beginning, you are growing the team, you are hiring people every month. And that is very helpful to build the culture. No argue about it. Now, when COVID happened, and we had some kind of hybrid model at that point. Some people could work remotely, some people could come to office some days, but office was very active, and we had, multiple offices at that time. And COVID happened overnight. Everybody had to work remotely. We started working remotely. And then afterward, we started during COVID time hiring people from different locations. There was no way for us to go back. We stayed remote 100%. But at the same time, once a quarter, as I do now, I'm back in Virginia, Tyson, just outside Washington, D.C., where, our main office is. And I come to this location and we bring some people here, and then we get together and we just quarterly basis, we just strategize and discuss. And then, the rest of the time, actually, we are all working remotely. So that's really, and even during this time, not everybody has to come to office every day. Depending on the meeting, some people show up. So I would say we are probably 90% remote, 95% remote. And sometimes if we need to really collaborate faster, the bandwidth you get inside one room with the real whiteboard, not virtual one, is much better, much faster. So that's really where we are from organizational point of view. For me, as a person that, need to really meet with the team and cultivate the culture and work with everybody to make sure I would love to really meet with people in person, face to face. If I have to, travel and bring people to one location and just meet with them every quarter or every 6 months or once a year, I will do it. So I'm a big advocate of really seeing people face to face, shaking hands, having some really, that kind of experience. I think it's never ever going to be, Atkinson. I don't know how to do it over Zoom. Well, I don't know how to do it over Zoom. But when I get together with people over in one room, it's just totally much better experience from my perspective.
What advice would you provide to younger folks who are just getting into the world of work in terms of how they should think about either their career path or their behavior or the choices that they make? I mean, what do you remember conscious decisions around, I think I need this skill set, or I'm going to make this decision to go in this direction as you've gone through your career? I mean, what kind of waypoints did you consciously veer in one direction or another?
Yeah, it might be very difficult to really predict the future, of course. And it's not easy for someone to say, I can really plan to get to that destination. But it is not difficult to really ask yourself where you want it to end up. Let's say whatever time range you have in mind, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, when I'm at the age of this particular age, where do you want to be? And that's really what I encourage most of these young people to really think about it. Where do you want to be at that age? And then do, in a way, a reverse engineering. And every day when you wake up, ask yourself what you are going to do today. Is it going to help you to get there or not? Right? So I had the luxury of, when I was at, in teenage, for example, that kind of age, I was a teenager. I looked around and I picked people that I want to be with like them when I'm 50 or 60 years old. And I really admired them. And those people, 1, 2, 3 people that I really, really admired, they had very shared kind of values, and they had some kind of things that I could see. All 3 of them, both of them, the 2, 3 people I liked most, they really, from those aspects are very similar, and that's where I wanted to end up. And that gave me that kind of compass that I wanted to really go that route. So I should take these kind of actions to get there. Sometimes your timing may not be perfect. You wanted to be there at the age of 40, you get there at the age of 60 or vice versa, but you get there. I mean, that's the most important thing. So the main question for them is, where do you want to end up? Look there and nothing else, and you will end up there.
What do you think some of your soft skills were that allowed you to kind of build, very successful companies multiple times over? I mean, what do you think that that you had? Was it vision? Is it the ability to collaborate well? Is it being able to pick talent out? I mean, how did you do what you did so successfully?
It's a relative term, honestly, successfully. I mean, I may think about it like I could be way more successful, so I'm not that successful. Somebody else may look at it and say, no, it is success you have been. So I think success is kind of a relative term, and people need to define it in their mind. But what I would love to do, and I did, and I think from that aspect I was successful, was that I surrounded myself with people that are helpful, and I tried my best to be helpful to others, right? So from my perspective, that's the philosophy of life. So if somebody on my father's side, they have a very kind of interesting way to look at life. When somebody passed away, they'd say, he served well. He served everyone well, meaning that he essentially served the purpose of life. And I thought that that's really good way to look at life. So I want to be the kind of person that has been helpful. So if I pass away, people look at me and say, hey, he was helpful, right? So he served his purpose. And that's really the way, you surround yourself with people that are helpful, and then you make people happy. And that gives you the kind of guideline that when you go there and you do your best, not always you can be successful, but you do your best to optimize that, to really help others and make people happy, and others come in and help you. And then you get where you want. And honestly, at the end of the day, the more you age and the more you go, I more become a believer in that people that I saw, around me that I loved most, that they were happiest people that I could see. They were happy because, honestly, they were very honest people, and they were very helpful to others, and they made others happy. So everybody else made them happy and helped them.
Well, I think that's a great piece of advice. I mean, I think, in my world, we're always looking for folks who are conscientious, which is, I think, where you end up making, at least in the world of work, if you're customer facing, being conscientious is usually winds up meaning that you're making the customer happy, or your coworkers, or your, internal team. And I think that's as good advice as any, is always kind of go that extra mile and do that little bit more, so that in the end nobody is ever disappointed, regardless of whether it turns out to be successful or not. The best effort was put forth, and I like that. I think that's solid. Well, clearly, you are on the path to building another. I will say it's a successful operation. I know we've been tracking Qrvey for a while now here at Solutions Review. We look forward to doing that some more. And the time you've given us today has been greatly appreciated, Arman. Thanks very much, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you very much for having me. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Solutions Review is inviting you to join InsightJam.com. What started a few years ago as a social media event to celebrate enterprise technology has now grown into an always-on tech community with live events, discussions, videos, vendor showcases, and industry resources. Our vetted roster of experts, thought leaders, and analysts are sharing tips and tricks daily. So if you're interested in getting involved, join the long list of companies and brands who have already participated by visiting InsightJam.com today. Now back to the show.